My name is Theresa Doris Soules. I was a pharmacist mate in the Waves, U.S. Navy. I was born in New Bedford, Massachusetts on January 6, 1924. So I turned 99 years old 16 days ago. I was in high school when World War II started. I was getting ready to graduate in January of 1942 when World War started in December 1941. I was single and still in high school, so I wasn't ready to be engaged. That day, I had been out with friends in the afternoon. When I came home in the evening for dinner, my parents told me that they had heard on the radio that there had been a bombing by the Japanese in Pearl Harbor.
So you found out after the fact?
After the fact, yes.
And it was not like there wasn't radio or anything outside where you were at. You found out when you got home?
My parents are the ones who told me about it. All women were enlisted, and the requirements were you had to be 20 years old before you could get into the service, and you had to be at least 5 feet tall. And I managed to get 5 feet tall, be 5 feet tall, the minimum requirement to be in the service. No, I could have gone into the Army or the Marines, but the Navy had beautiful Navy uniforms, and the other two branches had khaki uniforms. Had also the Navy uniforms had been designed by one of the fashion designers of the time, maiden Bougie, and so they were quite a bit more attractive than the other branches. And I still wanted the Navy.
Yeah. So you didn't? Did you decide to join the Navy just based on the uniform?
No, no, I just wanted the Navy.
Oh, okay. You just wanted to be in the Navy.
I was sworn in on June 6, 1944 in Boston, Massachusetts. But I did not go into active duty until July 19th of 1944. But I was sworn in on D-Day when the Allied forces invaded and landed at Normandy. Hunter College in the Bronx in New York.
Oh, wow. What was that like? Describe that, if you would.
It was quite interesting. We did not stay on campus. We were in an apartment house in the middle of a big community. It was in the middle of summer, but there was no air conditioning at the time. The windows were always open, and we had loud clanging bells disturbing the entire neighborhood several times a day. And we had, I think, 6 floors in the apartment building we were in. We were 12 women to each apartment, and we were on the 4th floor. There were two rooms. Let's see, we had 3 bunk beds in each room, and so the 12 of us stayed in one room. And we had an elevator in the building. We were not allowed to use the elevator. We had to climb the stairs all the time. We did not have a dining room except at the college, so we had to get out in the middle of the street and get into position and march down the street, singing as we went to the school to eat our meals, 3 meals a day.
What did you sing?
Oh, we sang some. I can't sing, so I can't tell you what they were. But one was we march. We watch, we drill, we muster in the morning, we muster in the evening, and then at noontime too. When we ask them why the heck we muster, they say to see who's absent, and also to see who's here. So we're all here. Well, we're all here. how the heck can we get out so you can bet that we're all here? That was one of my favorite songs that we sang, going to and from. We spent our time drilling and in class, learning about the different disciplines in the service. And then we also had to try to get measures for uniforms and shoes and special clothing. They gave us cotton stockings to wear, lace-up shoes so we could be comfortable drilling, and we did drill every single day. We had one occasion that happened in boot camp that was quite interesting. There was the mayor of New York City was called Theresa LaGuardia. He was called the little flower. And it was a special occasion while we were there on a Sunday where we were going to have to be out in the hot sunshine. And we had standing attention. There were medical corpsmen hanging around in the area. So when a girl fainted, they were there to pick her up and get her off the field. But after the event was over, we were told that the temperature that day had been 99 degrees in New York City, and also the humidity was just about the same. And so they had told us if it had gone up to 100 degrees, we would not have had to stand in that hot sun. Calisthenics is what we did every single day. We marched, like I said, every meal to the school, and then we had class room lessons in the different disciplines that were available to women in the military and in the Navy. I decided to go into the hospital corps, and became an HA. Was by ranking. Hospital attendant was the ranking that I got when I left New York, and was sent to Bethesda, Maryland, to the hospital in Bethesda to complete assistant nurses training, and spent 6 weeks there at Bethesda. It was interesting. Of the 12 women in my apartment, 7 of us were from the New England area, and 2 from South Carolina. And the 2 from South Carolina were not used to hearing us being called Yankees. And one of the girls mentioned one day, she said, I've never heard anybody call them Yankees before. They got a rise out of us. Not really. I didn't know what to expect. But the other thing is, the first night we were there, we went to eat evening meal, and they served us liver and onions. And I thought, what have I got myself into? Because I didn't like liver and onions. But that was the only time, all the time I was in the service, that they gave us liver and onions for a meal.
Were meals, what, besides that, what else was the food like when you were, well, I guess let's just start with maybe what it was like in basic training.
Well, it was not bad. It was had been a university, and so they had student union type food, but other places were different. When I was in Bethesda, that was a lot of big shots with their brass, Navy brass, and so we stand in line for breakfast in the morning, and the attendants would ask us, how do you want your eggs fixed? And I never got that kind of treatment anywhere else at any time. So I enjoyed it for 6 weeks. In training, where we would like to be stationed after we left our nurses training. And since I lived on the East Coast, I figured, well, maybe I'd select 2 places on the West Coast and 1 on the East Coast. But the powers that be decided I should go to northern Oklahoma instead.
When were you in After training, when were you in law? Were you in California for a bit as well?
No, that was after Norman.
Oh, okay.
I was
All
in
right.
the Naval Hospital in Norman for 3 months. The hospital there, there were 2 bases in Norman. The North Base was where they trained the pilots, Navy pilots, and the South Base was where the hospital was, and they trained the aviation machinist mate who worked on the plane engines. And so since the hospital was on South Base, that's where I was stationed in barracks. Looking after the patient's needs and bathing them, that sort of thing.
Okay.
And when I got to the hospital in Norman, I was assigned to the SOQ, Sick Officers Quarters. And I was there for a week with one woman patient. And all she wanted me to do was comb her hair. So after that, they assigned me as a receptionist in the outpatient department for the families of the people who were stationed at South Base. And one day I saw a message on a bulletin board stating that they were going to be having a class in laboratory training before quite soon. And I applied for it and got orders from Washington, D.C. to report to Long Beach Naval Hospital in Long Beach, California on January 1st, 1945 to start my lab training. I had to learn how to use a microscope and also had to learn how to draw blood.
Now, were these for men and women that had already been overseas, or were these for men and women that had been injured?
Both. Since it was on the West Coast, we used to get troop ships, hospital ships that would come into Long Beach, maybe 200 or 300 people at a time. And we'd have to draw blood on everybody and get some lab work done. Yes, I had 2 pathologists at Long Beach. They were both very, very helpful, and they had a great deal of care for the patients. And I also got to see about 3 autopsies while I was there.
Wow. Do you recall any either one of their names by chance?
No, I don't recall the
No.
names.
Okay.
One of them was a cook at the hospital, and he developed leukemia, and he was well loved by everybody. He was just one of these real friendly fellows. So when he passed away, a lot of us wanted to go to the autopsy.
Do you recall your commanding officer name at all?
Yes, one of them was named Shacklefoot. He was a pathologist. I don't recall the other name. On VE Day and on VJ Day both, I was at the hospital in Long Beach, California.
So just another work day for you then.
Well, VJ Day was, I didn't even know the war was over, but I had liberty that day, and I had taken the bus from the hospital to downtown Long Beach, and I was going to meet David, who was my fiance at the time, and he was stationed at Seal Beach, not very far away from Long Beach, but he never showed up. And so after waiting about an hour, and people were all milling all over the street, and so much excitement in the air because the war was over. We just found out. So I went back to the hospital, found out that where Seal Beach was located, the commanding officer had revoked everybody's passes. They could not leave the installation. I don't know why, I guess maybe because there were too many people celebrating in downtown Long Beach.
What was that like to know that the war was finally over?
It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing because we were not aware. We didn't get too much information about the atomic bombs that had been dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki at the time. And That, of course, was what finished the war. We had a patient who came in inebriated and out of control, and they put him up on the 6th floor, which was a psychiatric floor. And during the day, whenever we had to go get some blood work from a patient on that floor, the male members of the laboratory always went, so I'd never been up there before. And when I got up there to draw blood on him, the doctors wanted a blood alcohol on him. And they put me in a padded room. The patient was on the floor. I had to get down on my hands and knees to draw blood out of his arm. So it's quite a battle. That's something that I've never forgotten.
Oh, wow. Was there another experience or time that maybe was a something that stuck out that was a shock, or something that you didn't think was going to be part of the job?
Yes. The last 2 or 3 days that I was in the military, we had a patient, troopship coming in who had smallpox. And the laboratory, for some reason, always gave the booster shots. And so the last 2 or 3 days I was at the Navy, I was not working in the laboratory. I was giving vaccinations to everybody in the hospital, the patients, the employees, all the corpsmen that were there, and anybody that came in on the troop ship. All of them had to get smallpox vaccinations. That was quite a memorable way of ending my active career. Before that, when I was in high school, I loved chemistry, and I thought maybe I'd like to be a chemical engineer, but my parents couldn't afford to send me to college, and so I worked at a plant in New Bedford that had come into the Aerobox Corporation. Was a war plant, and they had a laboratory, and so I was able to work in the laboratory there. But then when I went into doing blood chemistry, I enjoyed it so much that I went ahead and pursued that. When I got out of the Navy, went to college and got my ASCP, my American Association of Blood Banks. American Society of Clinical Pathologists is my training, and I got my degree from the University of Oklahoma, and did a 13 months internship at Baylor University in Dallas, Texas. And so the rest of my life, all my professional life, I worked in a hospital laboratory, and then the last 5 years I worked in a clinic laboratory. Then one day at a time, and obey the 10 Commandments, and do unto others as you would have others do unto you. The golden rule.